Good Sunday evening, high school sports fans. Joe Gillaway with Lingelstown Gazette Sports live from the Orchard Street studio, and this is our high school football Week 14 recap show. I'll be joined momentarily by our panel of experts, along with possibly and hopefully a special opening guest. That would be Mechanicsburg coach Dave Heckard. He is scheduled to join us. I'm not sure if he is or will be or not, but we hope to bring him in as soon as he does jump in here. And we're going to thank those responsible for bringing you tonight's show, and then get right into the show. That is Rickabaug's Electric, Payor Apparel, Ted's Bar and Grill, Hoffman Ford, Freedom Financial Wealth Management, the Tire Mart, American Legion Post 272, Modern Imprint, Team PA, AAU Basketball, Crystal Bobbitt, Howard Hanna Real Estate, Underdog Sports Bar and Grill, Capital Region Insurance Agency, Sam Hartley Decking, and Tonino's Pizza. Thanks very much to these great local businesses for their continued support of Lingelstown Gazette Sports and our area student athletes. Upcoming on our podcast, our Week 15 recap show will be next Monday, a week from tomorrow. I have something I have to do on Sunday night, and that will be at 7 o'clock. All of our weeknight shows are at 7. That gives people a chance to get home from work and have dinner before we get started. And then a day after that, Tuesday, December 3rd, we're going to start our high school basketball recap show, which is going to have a lot of familiarities with what we do here, only we're going to talk about boys high school basketball. We have coaches Kirk Smallwood and Ty Savercool joining us as panelists, hopefully throughout the whole season, and then a couple other experts, I like to call them, because they are experts and friends of mine. So that's next Monday and Tuesday. So let's get right into it here. I don't have to tell you, but it was a big weekend of high school football. Lots of Saturday games. Almost felt like it was split in half because of the weather between Friday and Saturday. Let's just touch on. Let me thank. We have a special guest from Penn Live Patriot News, Dan Sostek. Dan, thank you for joining us.
No problem, guys.
You're great at what you do, and we really appreciate it. And then regular panelist Travis Waters, Terry Clark Jr. Thanks, guys. We got Travis and Terry back together for the first time in a couple of weeks. I think Terry was traveling this last week, and then the week before Travis was. So we started this season with 555 football teams competing out of the gate, week 1 or week 0, whatever you prefer. 531 have now been eliminated. 24 teams remain. That is state semifinals. 4 teams in 6 classifications equals 24. And representatives by district. Let's tell you how many teams are left in each district. District 1, there's 2. District 2, there's 1 team remaining. District 3, that's our home, Harrisburg area, Harrisburg, York, Lancaster, Lebanon, Berks, Adams, and York counties, 3 teams remaining. District 4, there's 3 teams. District 5, no teams. District 6, 2. District 7, 6 teams. Now, they're a little bit of a bigger district, and without getting into how it all plays out, they would almost always have more teams remaining at this point, District 7. And that's not to take away from anything to do with how great a football district they are. District 8, no teams. District 9 has 2 teams. No District 9 team has ever won a state championship since this started in 1988. District 10, which is the Erie area, no teams. District 11, big deal for them. They haven't won a state championship since 2010. They have 2 teams remaining. One has a really good chance of finishing out the season with a win. And then District 12, Philadelphia City, would be 3 teams remaining. So 17 of the remaining 24 teams are number 1 seeds. The highest scoring game was Bishop Guilfoyle 56, Westinghouse 15. Lowest scoring game, Avonworth 17, Central Valley 0. And other shutouts were Northwestern Lehigh 34-0 over Scranton Prep. Thomas Jefferson 35-0 over Clearfield, and Westchester Ruston 34-2 over Springfield Delco. Yeah, I know 2 points isn't a shutout, but the Ruston defense shut Springfield Delco out. So let's bring the guys in. Anybody want to answer this? What games intrigued you? I know I watched a couple that were really good. Dan, how about you? Did you watch any games, or were you at any games?
I was at probably one of the less competitive games and probably even less competitive than the score indicates. That's the McDevitt Exeter game. It was a complete mismatch basically from the jump. Exeter Township has their running back Jaden Zandier ran for 2,000 yards and 30 touchdowns this year. Came in a little banged up, hurt himself midway through the second quarter. Finished today with 5 carries for 3 yards. So,
Oh, wow.
when you have a 2,000-yard rusher finish with 5 carries for 3 yards, it's probably not going to be a pretty day for you. And
No.
McDevitt just rolled. So they're playing their best football. But I think the interesting takeaway from that for me more than anything is how it's kind of a different dynamic for that Crusader program this year, where in years past, they're coming off their Keystone Division schedule where every game's a 60-0, 56-0, 45-0 blowout. This year they're in the Mid-Penn Commonwealth and they got tested, in a way they haven't each and every week in the regular season, going against, 2 teams that were in the state playoffs this year in State College and Harrisburg. Those were their 2 losses this year, but close games. Also, even other games like Cumberland Valley and those teams that, solid teams. So it feels like they are coming into the playoffs more tested, and it feels like it's paid a lot of dividends. They've been pretty dominant. The Mechanicsburg game, the closest game of the playoffs, and even that game probably not as close as the score indicated. I'm really excited for this game next week, but Jeff Wechter told me they tied Manheim Central for most District 3 titles.
18.
18. But he said we don't really play for district titles here, Bishop McDevitt. Those fans only really care about one thing, so they need 2 more wins.
It's kind of I'm just going to tell you how I feel. It's kind of a foregone conclusion that they're going to win a district title just about every year. Okay.
Yeah.
If anybody out there is a McDevitt fan, you think I'm kind of overstating it. I don't think I am. I mean, I don't think 5A has offered them a whole lot more competition than 4A did for all those years. And I think that Coach Wechter, hats off to Coach Wechter, he's got a significant portion of those 18 district titles with him leading the program. But I kind of agree with what he said, just as somebody on the outside looking in, just kind of watching it, that I think that it's kind of state championship or bust for this 2024 Crusaders team. A little bit young, right? But still loaded with talent. That's what I think. Terry, what do you know about the McDevitt team?
I will say one thing about McDevitt coming into the district playoffs. As we all know, they were a 6 seed, but they weren't a true 6 seed.
Nah, not at all.
That coming into the bracket, it was just a matter for McDevitt get in and handle business, and that's what they did at the end of the day. The teams that they went up against in District 3 5A were a little overmatched. Like Dan pointed out, the only team that kind of played them somewhat competitively, but still McDevitt was pretty much in control of the whole game, was Mechanicsburg. But other than that, what they did on Friday, that was expected, to be honest. I had Exeter Township getting to the championship game versus them, but I just didn't think that they had enough to be able to make that game competitive.
Right.
But one thing I will say about McDevitt that I was happy to see, which I was thinking coming into the season that they should be able to do, but early on in the season they were struggling to do it, was being able to run the ball consistently. They have 3 really good running backs. So coming into the season, I knew that I knew about the freshmen that they had coming as well. That's getting in the mix here and there, but they returned their top 2 rushers from last year's team. So I was thinking, like, they're going to be able to be really, really dynamic. They'll be able to run, and they still have Stone, who is a 4 straight 3,000-yard passing quarterback who's also a D1 quarterback. So I was like, man, like this offense could be really, really, really good. And it's starting to come along. We're starting to see them establish the run game. And like we talked about, Joe and Travis in our chat, like in late November and December, you have to be able to run the football. That's what wins these games in this type of weather. You have to be able to establish and run the ball.
That's what won them. That's what won them the state title. Was Stone and Tyshawn Russell and Rico Scott get a lot of the credit, well deserved. But Marquise Williams, their running back that year, especially when Sincere Bowers kind of left the program midway through the year, Marquise Williams had a huge postseason that year, especially in kind of the cold weather, and was crucial. And you're spot on there. Like Nazir Jones-Davis and Maurice Barnes have just my coworker Evan Whedon kind of compared him a little bit to the Detroit Lions. It's kind of like the David Montgomery, Jahmyr Gibbs combination, where Maurice Barnes is that heavy bruising back that linebackers don't like to tackle, and Nazir Jones-Davis is just quick as he's just quick and can cut, and he gets an angle, he's gone. They've just done a tremendous job. And then you mentioned Jerome LaRue Jr. at an 86-yard kick return touchdown. We haven't even seen close to the best of that kid.
Right.
They already got a Virginia Tech offer without playing it down a football. So that run, I agree. I think that run game's, if they're going to win a state title, it's going to be because that run game's on point.
And they're going to play Friday night at Mansion Park in Altoona against the number 1 seed out of the Whitfield District 7 Pine Richland, who took care of Peters Township 20-9, shut him out in the second half. It was 10-9 at halftime. Travis, we're going to move over to the Harrisburg game, and I'm going to ask you to just kind of get us started. It was their 4th straight District 3 Class 6A title, 5th in 7 seasons, and they also had a 5A title in 2016. It wasn't close, 42-14, as I anticipated. I think that you're always nervous if it's your own team or your own alma mater. And the people I knew were kind of a little edgy. What did I tell you guys? I said at least 3 touchdowns. I just felt really, really good about it. I think East has played very, very well since the second quarter in the Week 10 East High game. I was standing on the sidelines for that. They look great. They haven't turned back since then. Travis?
Yeah, I would agree. Harrisburg is clicking now. They are not the same team they were. Definitely not the beginning of the season, not midway through. Getting Kevin Brown back makes a huge difference. And I said this. I mean, if they played like this through the course of the season, they would have beaten everybody by at least in the mid-pen by at least 3 touchdowns. That's McDevitt and State College included.
I think so.
They are playing well, and they're young as well. They are young. Jayon Lewis he's a legitimate quarterback right now. I mean, he has more velocity on the ball. They're running the ball. They're running. Nobody can. I'm not going to say nobody in the state, of course, but nobody in District 3 can stop their running attack right now. And they're just like, I think all 3 running backs had touchdowns yesterday. Steffi. What's his name? And then another
Nehemiah.
And Nehemiah Yule had like a 50-yard run yesterday. They look really good. Definitely playing the best football that they played all season. Not even close.
And something, Travis, and you know this. You've worked intimately. You've been on the payroll, right, of the school district at Harrisburg, right?
Well, I was with the state, actually.
With the state, okay.
At least early in my career, I was a teacher there, yeah.
Okay. I kind of think there's a socioeconomic aspect of winning these big games for communities like Harrisburg and others. That there's other communities, they don't get the same, they don't draw the same out of it. There's challenges that they face that these games kind of, and it might just be a Band-Aid or a quick fix or a fix for just long enough, but to get them through. But they're lifted up by games like this. I noticed because I'm members of Facebook groups with a lot of different like fan bases and the Cougar Nation and even the Central Dolphin and Cumberland Valley. And that's what I do. So I see what everybody's talking about. And, it just gives the Harrisburg community something to rally around. And their only investment they need to make is with their heart. You know what I mean? And it just feels like, once again, this Harrisburg community, whether it's the current community members or the alma maters that may not live around anymore, but they either come back and watch some games or they root from wherever they are. There's a lot of energy right now for this Cougars team. And I'm not discounting if somebody out there is from, Cumberland Valley, they just won a state championship last week in soccer. That's a big deal. And they were happy about it. But I don't see the same level of enthusiasm. They just get back to what's going on 2 days later. And Harrisburg, they're all in right now, aren't they, Travis?
They are. And I can tell you, being at the game yesterday, Wilson was all in. Their fans were all in. They were loud at the beginning of the game, and Harrisburg silenced them really quick. You talk about that was not as close. That game was not even as close as score. I mean, Harrisburg, Coke got hurt, unfortunately.
But he's okay, right?
Yeah,
I don't know.
Be fine. He'll be fine.
So
X-rays were negative.
Yeah, but that's, I mean, that with sprained ankle, sometimes you'd rather break your ankle than sprain it, unfortunately.
The only difference is you can't come back next week from a broken ankle. You can't limp around on.
Yeah, I don't know where he's at, but Harrisburg had their second team in the entire fourth quarter, and Wilson actually left their starters in the whole game. It was not that. It was the score was worse than what the score indicated.
Yeah, and you got. I was just kind of thinking about it on Saturday too. It's like these are supposed to be neutral site games, and the games in Berks County. It's a 20-minute drive for Wilson, an hour 20 for Harrisburg too. It's like it's not. It wasn't exactly a. It was a little bit of an uphill battle in that regard as well. But yeah, I mean, this has been a hallmark of these Cal Everett teams, and this. I mean, in a career of great coaching jobs Cal Everett's done, this has got to be up there, given all the adversity this group has faced. I mean, I was reporting all summer on is Sean Lee Jr. going to play or not, and I think they were kind of ready for it, but kind of you still had that hope that maybe he gets to play. And man, I mean, Jayon Lewis has been tremendous, but imagine if this team had Sean Lee Jr. Like, I think if you had Sean Lee Jr. on this team, there'd be no ceiling, I think, on this group, especially when you throw in how good he is of a defensive player as well. But to deal with that, to deal with Kevin Brown missing almost every game, Deontay Sheffy getting hurt. I mean, you can be the naysayer and be like, hey, well, Sheffy wasn't even on the team last year, blah, blah, blah. Cal Everett, once again, has his team playing its best football at the end of the year. And, man, there's just a lot of winners in this group, too. I wanted to shout out Kymere Williams in particular. He's been a 4-year starter. That's a kid that doesn't put up stats in the way other stars do. He's not their number one receiver. He doesn't get as many picks as someone like Quincy Brandon does. He just does a little bit of everything for that team and has for 4 years. Like his brother, Kyle, who is also a tremendous player.
Kind of a lunch pail guy, right?
Yeah.
Stays below the radar.
Yeah, and he'll be at St. Francis next year, which is a pretty good college football program. They're getting a heck of a player and a winner. One of those kids that I think when you read your previews next year about Harrisburg, people probably they're going to just kind of say, he was one of the kids that graduated, but I think it's going to be a bigger loss than people expect because he's just such a leader for that group. So
he's very versatile. He's extremely versatile. Tremendous safety. I remember at the McDevitt, when they played McDevitt, he was all over the field on defense.
Yeah, that's you can just see when he's all over the field, like impossible to ignore.
Well, let's do this before we move on. We are going to talk about. I picked about 4 other games that I thought were very interesting, ones that I watched or heard about. What's Harrisburg have to do to beat? I watched every second of the Pittsburgh Central Catholic win. That might have been. I mean, it was 40 to 19.
Yeah,
that was almost not that close. I guess it was because Pitt Central Catholic kind of went on a timeout there for like a little bit. Did you watch the game, Dan?
No, I was at a game that night, but I was kind of following along
for a spell there. It looked like it was going to be a mercy rule game to me.
Yeah,
and
I followed Central Catholic decently well because I went to the University of Pittsburgh, and for those who know where Central Catholic is,
right there,
literally on that. I mean, that's why we got Dan Marino hanging in the rafters because he literally grew up on Pitt's campus. But that it looks like they're right back to another just pretty loaded team. This Bradley Gompers kid is something special. I know that I think it's an uphill battle just because of how talented that Central Catholic team is, but in terms of the depth and everything. But I'm really fascinated by the matchup because I think Harrisburg does have the higher end talent that maybe State College is sort of lacking in that matchup, where State College is kind of a team built on its depth and its ability to kind of win by numbers, right, and win with kind of really solid, just mistake-free football where they kind of do everything right. Harrisburg can do that, but they've also got that, those trump cards of Kevin Brown and Messiah Mickens and all these kids that are, going to be playing football on Saturdays.
All right, so I got it as kind of maybe a pick 'em. I mean, I think either team can win the game.
Well, here's the way I see it. It's much. I was at the game. I remember it was the 07-08 season when Tino
George
Ciceri,
Trump.
and it was different. Harrisburg wasn't great offensively, but they were great defensively. And actually, Harrisburg should have probably won that game.
Elite defensively.
Yeah, they had two NFL players on that defense.
Yeah.
So this time, Harrisburg is really flashy offense. Pittsburgh Central Catholic is a more smash mouth, going to run the ball. I think for Harrisburg to win that game, you're going to have to, of course, you want to be able to stop the run. I know they haven't been playing Kevin Brown on defense. I think Kevin Brown may need to play a little more defense this week. Because you're going to need that. You're going to need a rotation, a deeper rotation of players. I think one of the things, a blessing in disguise with Kevin Brown not only playing through three games this year, some other kids were allowed to develop.
Mm-hmm.
Harrisburg is really young along the offensive and defensive line, so it allowed those kids to develop. But I think they're going to need that added depth and a little more size up against the Pittsburgh Central Catholic.
Yeah, Kevin Brown's not playing defensive line, but they were splitting him out a little bit, weren't they? I heard he was playing some. I mean, I know he came up kind of. They were considering when he was a freshman. Is he going to play tight end or is he going to play tackle? Because we all know how good of an athlete that kid is. That kid could probably play any position on a football field.
He doesn't look like a lineman because he doesn't have body fat. He's a really low body fat. They actually put him out at receiver. I think it was just a block though, but they actually ran the opposite direction. I think a couple guys would have made some business decisions if they would have thrown it out there.
You know what I found interesting, and again, I was watching that game. The Central Catholic, man, they went into a hurry up offense out of the gate, and they didn't stop.
Yep.
And I mean, Cal and his assistants are smart enough to know that we have to be ready for that. If they do that, it kind of changes. Maybe you're not entire defensive approach, but a lot about what you're doing, right, Dan? That if somebody's going hurry up,
especially given the responsibilities Messiah Mickens has kind of taken on as a defender for Harrisburg too. If you're playing that hurry up, if you're playing that hurry up, going up against a hurry up offense, and you can't get off the field as a linebacker, how much does that take out of Messiah as an offensive player as well? And then you're gonna you've got Sheffy and you've got Ewell, right? Two good running backs. But one of the reasons they've kind of taken this next step forward is Messiah Mickens has really started to look like that Penn State running back in recent weeks.
Right.
I had always kind of said he hadn't looked quite the same after getting hurt last year, early on in the year. And I think he kind of worked his way back, and then Kevin Brown got hurt, and the line was in a little bit of flux this year, so people could load the box a little more. But he's really started to look like that guy that at the start of last year I thought was going to run for 2,500 yards at Trinity. But if he's playing linebacker every down, and they kind of need him to because he's been that good for that defense, how much does that take it out of you if he's playing 10 plays without a break? Luckily, they do have a ton of running backs, so it's a little bit of a rich man's problem, right? But it's still something that you'd rather have Messiah in there, you'd rather have Messiah fresh.
I'm not too worried about that, just because you do have the other backs where he didn't even. I don't think he started. I think it was Sheffy who actually started on Saturday.
Yeah.
But I will say this, and I don't know if it's going to help a whole lot against Pittsburgh Central Catholic because they're so run heavy. But one thing I noticed when Mickens was in there and Kevin Brown came in on defense, it was a sack. It was a jailbreak as far as the pass rush was concerned. It was an absolute jailbreak.
No defense in the States. You're going to be hard pressed to find a defense in the state with the two athletes that good on playing on one. I don't care. I don't care if they're not defensive for players at the next level. They're still.
And one thing that I do want to add, though, that I'm glad that everyone is getting to see statewide, I kept trying to tell people that Messiah Mickens on defense was just as good as a player on offense. People did not know that, but only people that were really close with him watched this kid grow up as a youth to now knew that. We knew that already. We was like, I'm telling you, on defense, he is just as good, if not better, because he's been playing defense longer than he's been an actual running back.
Not
People have
quite.
that in mind.
Very good technique, great tackler. I'm gonna name drop. Not quite a Jai Burney, okay? If you guys are for Jai Burney, and listen,
Yes.
that's what I say that with all respect to Messiah Mickens. I just love Jai Burney and what he brought.
Jai Burney
Oh my God, could he hit?
He was a hell of a linebacker. But I'll tell you what, though, I was at the Manheim Township game and watching the game with Octavius Burnett, and Octavius Burnett says he just has a nose for the football, and he definitely does, just like Jai Burney. Jai Burney had a nose for the football.
That's why I threw Jai's name in there.
He's always around the football. Wherever the football is, he'll be there.
So,
and with Harris, just another thing about the Harrisburg general culture too. And I talked with Cal a little bit about this earlier in the year. How many 6A schools have as many of their superstars that are as important to like both sides of the ball as Harrisburg? It's part of the culture. It's he said just how unselfish a lot of these guys are. You think about Messiah Mickens, Elias Koch, Kevin Brown. Heck, when Sean Lee was there, he was playing both ways at quarterback, which you don't see very often at the 6A level at all. There's just so much buy-in at that program under Cal Everett. I can't say enough about the job he's done this year. When, especially after that LaSalle game, I feel like that game could have kind of taken the wind out of the LaSalle game, and then that Monday, Kevin Brown breaks his foot. How many other programs is that kind of torpedo? But they come right out, win that McDevitt game, and it's been uphill trajectory ever since.
Right.
Yeah,
okay.
Cal's done a heck of a job coaching this year. I remember sitting here week one, we're saying that they could come out the gate 0-3, going up against McDevitt and then State College the next week.
It was close to 0-3 too. I mean, it was a wide left field goal, not wide by much against McDevitt.
It was a block. It was a block. Field goal. Okay,
McDevitt, and then it was the off the fingertips for Elias Koch blocking the and they won the game. They made the plays. I'm not discounting that they made the plays to win. It was very close to 0-3.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
So I think we were all watching, or at least I think Terry, you and I were. Lampeter Strasburg 30, Wyomissing 27.
Oh, we were following that in the press box.
My goodness. It was an overtime game. Lampeter Strasburg had a 4th and 13 with 1:23 left. The quarterback, the name's slipping my mind here. He just ran all over the field. I mean, all over the field to avoid the defense, the guys on the rush. And he finally heaved the ball from one sideline over to the other sideline. Did you see the play, Terry?
Yeah,
it was ridiculous. It was an 18-yard. They needed 13. They got 18. And then it kind of Wyomissing had some hiccups down the stretch.
Yeah, they did.
It didn't look like the typical Wyomissing team. But I will say this: they had 4th down inside the 2. They had a chance to go for it, and they went for a field goal instead in overtime, and it got blocked. So, I mean, hindsight's definitely 20/20, and I'm sure they got a really good coach over there.
Right.
But
and the irony of that particular play, the previous possession to push it into overtime, they were in a similar situation. They were going to kick a field goal, but Lampeter Strasburg ran into the kicker, so it gave them fresh new downs, and they were able to, score. So similar situation this time, except they decided to kick the field goal again, but it got blocked.
So I mentioned we have 3 remaining District 3 teams, and that's the 3: Harrisburg in 6A, McDevitt in 5A, and Lampeter Strasburg in 4A. Congratulations for getting this far, for adding some hardware to your trophy cases, and best wishes moving forward. Fort Cherry and Clareton I found to be very, very interesting. Clareton was winning most of the game. They have, and I was texting with you guys, 0 kicking game and 0 passing game. They passed for 6 yards. So they finally got down at the end. Fort Cherry took a 21-20 lead. And of course, when you have 20 rather than 21, that's because you missed a kick, And Clareton had like 2:13 to go the whole length of the field, but they had to run the ball. They had no, I guess in their mind, they had no pass option, and they just couldn't get it done. Fort Cherry played their best defense at the right time, and I kind of liked Clareton in that game to win. But it's just a team that, to me, was not built to go deep into the playoffs. If you have no kicking game, you can get by that.
Well, that's kind of all Clarendon. They just kind of they have to kind of make do with what they have, right? And they've always like when Tyler Boyd and Lamont Wade were playing quarterback.
You're right, absolutely.
Now the Tyler Boyd, maybe as a pick guy, I'd say has an argument for maybe you could argue one of the best high school football players in the state.
Oh yeah, hands down. Tyler Boyd was insane in high school.
Yeah, but so they don't have that. I think it's kind of you need that level of player if you're going to play like that, right? You need like a guy that's kind of transcended in that regard. But I mean, they made it close. Matt Sieg's a heck of a player too, the Penn State.
Yeah.
That kid's. I was talking with someone from Pittsburgh. I know my coworker Eric Epler does not like combined records. But they were bringing up how he's going to be in the mix potentially for state records for combined passing and rushing yards and combined passing and rushing touchdowns.
I like that record. What's wrong with that?
F doesn't like it
because his rushing yards are insane. Like at the quarterback position.
Yeah, 4,000 plus, right? Over 4,000.
And he'll be playing safety probably at Penn State.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
He didn't have the gaudy numbers yet. Was it yesterday? I think, Saturday. The gaudy offensive numbers, but you know what? Down the stretch when they needed big plays, Matt Sieg made them. Yeah, he was the guy.
Clarendon's probably similar to a similar level of defense to that Steel High defense last year, and Steel High really shut him down last year. Couldn't really do much. And
it's funny you mentioned Steel High because I remember when I was in the Whippio group last year, the Fort Cherry fans, they were giving me a hard time because I told them, I was like, he's a great player, but he's not going to be able to do that versus Steel High. I'm telling y'all.
And he did not do that.
Oh, you don't know what you're talking about.
I don't think they knew how good that offense, the line, the trench play is for Steel High that year. That
was not a 1A defense, especially defensive. The front seven was not like a typical 1A.
And I guess they took it as I was trying to disrespect him, but I wasn't. I was just telling them like, hey, they got some really, really good big time athletes that's Still High.
It's not a judgment of the player at all. You need more than one player to run the ball.
One player, right? Exactly.
If anybody is respectful when it comes to giving and taking with those people on those groups, it's you, Terry. I'll tell you that. No, seriously. I don't know. Maybe you are a homer. You don't come across as one. I'm sure you have the teams, but no, I would never think that you're badgering or judging or talking out of the side of your neck. Any other games you guys want to talk about? I mean, I just chose a few that I thought were interesting.
George, I just wanted to mention the special teams. You guys were talking about special teams earlier and the importance of at least having respectable special teams at this time of the season. And unless you're like just have overwhelming talent, like Pittsburgh Central Catholic is the only, I would say really a 3, 4, 5, and 6. You have to, you're going to have to have overwhelming talent to overcome poor special teams play. And those are things that's going to cost some teams if you can't get that together, right? At this time of the year.
Well, Clary was scoring 60 points a game all season, so it didn't matter. Go ahead, Dan.
Well, funny you mentioned that because Bishop McDevitt has really struggled with special teams.
Yes.
Their kicker, Aiden Grello, is a really good kicker, has been out the last 2 weeks due to some sickness. I'm not going to. I've heard it's nothing terrible. They're expecting him. I think they're hoping he's going to be back this week, and it will be big if he is back this week because they did not make a single extra point. They brought up some soccer players. The whole operation was off. It wasn't on one guy. There was the snap was off, the kick was low, everything was kind of off. And then they tried Jonte Quick to kick the extra points. It didn't work. And that stuff doesn't matter when you're winning 45-0, right?
Yeah.
It does matter in a close game against Pine Richland when every point matters and it changes. Does someone need a field goal versus a touchdown? Can you get a 2-point conversion to tie the game up because you missed an extra point? Every point matters at this stage of it. So that's something that definitely matters. Every McDevitt fan, I imagine, was writing that down that they really hope Aiden Grell is back because he's a heck of a kicker.
Absolutely.
That's interesting. That's one thing Harrisburg has been doing well.
Oh, they're
They're kicking extra points. They haven't gone for any field goals, but they kick. I mean, he's booting the ball. Kid's a wrestler and a soccer player. Heck of a wrestler.
Harrisburg's pretty good at picking up those 4th and 7s and 4th and 11s. They have been. I've watched a lot of Harrisburg football over the years, and they seem to come up with that yardage when they need it. How about we do this? I have the remaining brackets here. Let's talk about some of these matches. We don't have time to go through all of them, but I think the 1A has it separated the right way, where it's Port Allegheny against Fort Cherry, Muncie versus Bishop Guilfoyle. So I'm sure the game the sexy game is probably Guilfoyle versus Fort Cherry. Is that the way you guys see it's going to play out? Fort Cherry beating out Port Allegheny and Guilfoyle over Muncie.
Guilfoyle's really good.
That's the way I see it.
Yeah.
That was the team, and there was probably 6 or 7, I think, valid, legitimate teams that maybe in the middle of the season in 1A that looked like they could have won it all. Remember, we've been talking about that all year.
The Westinghouse result is pretty surprising.
Wow.
Yes, it is.
They've kind of had a year from a kind of a year where a lot of stuff went wrong for that program, I think, and they still battled. But Guilfoyle is a heck of a football team. So,
I'm wrong a lot, and I really am. I'm wrong a lot. But I said early on, I like Guilfoyle. I just heard a little bit about them. I saw them winning, and they lost a game. They lost like in week 7 or week 8. I just got right back on the horse, and it was the biggest offensive output of the weekend. South Park, Central Clarion in 2A. Winner plays the winner of Riverside and Troy. Is this Troy's year? It kind of feels like it is.
They look strong.
Everyone keeps saying it is, and they look strong. I mean, every week in and week out, they're putting up big numbers. So
you got to kind of keep a team like that grounded, I think, like emotionally grounded, because all they're doing is just playing great football. And you don't want to cast anything negative towards them, but just say, listen, guys, we put our pants on one leg at a time, like whatever it takes to remind them that it's not a foregone conclusion. You just got to keep playing them one game at a time.
Yeah, you got to avoid.
The only thing I worry about when you have a team that hasn't faced adversity,
right?
Is how do they respond when they do face adversity?
There you go.
Not saying that they don't know that they won't respond positively, but you don't know until they face adversity.
Correct.
That's what we're talking about. That's what I was kind of mentioning with McDevitt, that I think that they benefit from having dealt with this Commonwealth schedule that they haven't faced in years, and I sometimes it helps to get punched.
It had to help. Even
Absolutely.
Central Dauphin was tied with them early in the 4th quarter, and that's not really a shout out.
They were only up
exactly.
And Altoona, had the battle for
Altoona 27-20, I think.
Right.
And McDevitt was obviously, and I'm going to say this, way better than any of those 3 teams. Way better. But things just get a little bit different in the Commonwealth.
Because the level of physicality. That's what it comes down to.
If you don't bring your A game, and if someone does bring their A game, you can get beat. Think about Harrisburg and Cumberland Valley, which probably was a good thing maybe for Harrisburg. But I mean, Cumberland Valley is not better than Harrisburg. But they beat them.
It might have been the only game out of 1,000 that they would beat Harrisburg. It just happened to be the one that they played them.
Yeah. I mean, like Chambersburg's like on the lower tier of the Commonwealth the last few years, and they're a team. They're a school that won the state title in track and field a couple of years ago. So it's like that's kind of the talent base you're dealing with in that division.
And probably would have repeated if they had their star still running track. So let's move on to 3A. Penn Cambria against, I guess, a little bit of a surprise, Avonworth. They're on the west side of the bracket, and then Northwestern. Okay, good. And then Northwestern Lehigh, kind of that team that everybody's expecting to at least get back there. They lost to Bell Vernon pretty good last year against Danville. So go ahead, Terry. You get it started.
Yeah. So the Avonworth team, that beat Central Valley. That was a shocker to a lot of people.
17-0, just to clear it up.
Yeah, a lot of people had Central Valley winning that game, rightfully so. I think the last show that I did prior to going on vacation, I think I even threw their name out there because they were kind of like just on the cut line of getting in the playoffs because they were 5-5 team.
Wow.
But I was telling everyone that they played a bigger schedule. They played all classifications 4A and up. So they were kind of leaping into the playoffs, but they had a really, really good big time running back, and his name is James Henry Jr. He's a sophomore. And I bring him up because for whatever reason in that Avonworth game, he only touched the ball 4 times. Now, I don't know what the reason for that was. If you talk to anyone from the fan base, they didn't understand it. His dad even said that he was banged up earlier in the season, but in this particular game, he was ready. He was good. But for some reason, he only touched the ball 4 times. Not sure what was going on with that situation, but when you have a stud player like that, he has to touch the ball more than 4 times. I mean, So for whatever reason, that's what happened. End result, they ended up not being able to score anything in that game, and they lost.
How many?
So,
go ahead. No, I was going to say, how many shows that are based in Eastern Pennsylvania are going to give you that much information about Avonworth and Central Valley? Well done, Terry. Dan, our panel of experts truly are a panel of experts. Yeah, kind of Northwestern Lehigh. If my buddy Dave Zeiser, he's a District 11 guy. District 11 hasn't won it in 14 years. Allentown Central Catholic, 2010. And that's a pretty good football area up there.
Yeah.
Greater Allentown, Bethlehem, Easton. So, I mean, that whole area has to be kind of behind Northwestern Lehigh. And it's not just them. They also have, who's the other one? Southern Lehigh, which is a good segue. One of my big boy games of the week was Bonner Prendergast versus Pope John Paul II, and Bonner Prendy just took it to them. They just whacked them. So they're gonna. That's, to me, that could be the most intriguing. It's almost a foregone conclusion, guys. Bonner Prendy versus Thomas Jefferson. What do you guys think? Any way that's not going to happen that way?
You don't think Southern Lehigh has a chance first down?
I think they have a chance. Yeah, I don't think Lampeter Strasburg has a chance.
Yeah, that's going to be tough.
Am I supposed to say this stuff on this show? But
hey, I think we said that a team that can beat up on Alacopo like that, that team is really good. So, Lampeter Strasburg needs everything to go their way to win that game. That's for sure.
Yeah. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, and
I'll say this. I know we didn't get through the whole state yet, but I'm favoring the western part of the state in most state championship games.
Yeah,
I'll say that.
Bonner Prendergast, 2 losses to St. Joe's Prep and LaSalle. That's their 2 losses.
Yes, and that's another team in school that is battle tested. I mean, they play in the PCL, they play Roman Catholic, they play St. Joe's Prep.
Absolutely.
They play LaSalle. I mean, those are 3 of the top 5 teams in the state right there.
They beat Roman Catholic 38-30.
Yeah, so I mean, this team is good. They're really good. So it should be interesting. But that Southern Lehigh team, they're sneaky. They're good. They have a good program.
You got one of the best tight ends in the country
in the nation. Yep, going to Michigan.
You don't have many tight ends in high school that are that level of player, right? Usually when you get that good tight end, they're playing like wide receiver, like. They're not like a fully formed tight end.
Correct.
It's a knocked up problem.
That's a great point. Yeah.
Yeah, he's legit. I was watching film on him the other day. I was like, man, this kid is huge. He's huge. But not only is he a great athlete, like he's a fantastic blocker too.
I think Exeter Township had a guy like that.
They did.
Exeter. Remember, like 2-3 years ago,
Governor Mifflin.
Yeah, they had a guy like that.
Yeah,
he was tall.
Yeah, Joe Schlaffer.
Yeah.
Joe Schlaffer. Yes. When they beat Governor Mifflin.
He was that kind of tight endish kind of guy, but you use him in high school as a wide receiver.
You can tell James Franklin really wants Andrew Olin because he's basically saying come commit to Penn State because look at Tyler Warren, and he's essentially without saying his name. So
we have 2 followers.
That's a good selling point. That's for sure.
Yeah, Dontrell Mitchell chiming in. He slept well last night. Did you guys touch on McDevitt, Pine, Richland? You know what? We really didn't. We'll talk about that. Really. Yeah, let's talk about that as soon as we're done.
We'll talk about what do you want? What do you want?
He wants to talk. He wants to know if we talked about McDevitt, Pine Richland.
Yeah, and you know what? I want to talk about that actually.
Let's finish this out because we're almost done. We're at 5A. but we should have given McDevitt a little bit of time, like we did Harrisburg, and talk about their upcoming game. Bishop McDevitt. Okay, here we go. Westchester Ruston. I kind of started looking at them in the middle of the season. You know what I was doing, guys? I was on Match Prep and I was looking at, well, this team beat this team, who beat that team. And for some reason, I was looking for about 10 minutes and I thought, Ruston must be pretty good. You know, just the way they were hanging with teams, the way they were beating teams. And they're definitely winning at the right time. I think they can beat Roman. Am I the only person that thinks that?
Oh, I'm starting to be a believer too. I am. I really am. I think that Roman needs to come prepared for a battle. I really do.
Yeah, I think Roman's a well-coached team. Rick Preetz, he's done such a good job there. I think they'll be ready. But you're right. When you have the wins that Ruston's put together, it's hard to sleep on them at this point.
Well, their only losses to Downingtown West, who's in the 6A semis. So that's why I said I noticed that, and I'm like, this team's pretty darn good. That they're won all these games and only lost by a touchdown to West.
I became a believer when they beat Chester. You know, I was rooting for Chester to get to this point actually, but they knocked them out pretty early.
They handed it to them.
Yeah, they did. So I was like, okay, I think this team is pretty legit. So
let's
Ruston is legit. Ruston is definitely legit, and I don't think that that's a toss-up game, quite honestly, in my opinion.
I think that McDevitt has a chance to beat Pine Richland. I'm sure everybody thinks they have a chance. I've talked to some people, though, that say, no, it's just bad matchup for McDevitt. Pine Richland is too disciplined. They're too physically tough. And there are all those things. Yep. You know, the mistakes that Pine Richland made were like 5 yards at a time.
The way they shut down McCullough on Peters Township, that was impressive. I've been kind of saying this. We kind of hit on it that McDevitt's run game has just been so good. Yeah. And Pine Richland is a team that can stop that run game. And I'm just really if you're going to be a team that gets kind of knocked out of the way that you typically play, I'd want to have a guy like Stone Saunders, who's played 1 billion high school football games, to be there to kind of be that stabilizing force. And I'll tell you what, Dominic Diaz-Ellis has just been awesome this year, playing behind 2 really good receivers last year. He had 10 for 110 this past week. I think he's going to have a big game. Probably going to get matched up against a Steelers legacy in Jay Timmons, who's Lawrence Timmons' kid. But yeah, there's just so much interesting stuff in this matchup. And John Ladon is just one of the best coaches in the state. We've seen it before where they've gone against teams with more Division I talent, like when they beat Ematep in the state title game. We know that they can do it. But McDevitt is playing some good football. It's a fascinating matchup.
The thing I like about Pine Richland in this game is that they can stop the run.
Yeah.
And they have the type of offense that can shorten the game.
Yeah.
McDevitt's offense off the
field.
I'm not saying that's going to happen, but they have the ingredients to do that.
Do those guys to you all look to be like kind of small in stature, but just really ripped? Or is it just my eyes? You know what I mean? They didn't look like huge kids, but they looked really fit and just strong and tough,
Well, yeah, you could definitely tell that they hit the weight room hard.
Like number 3 and number 4, they were both two-way guys. I should know their names, but I don't. Man, they were both so good.
And their guys in the secondary, they bring it too. Like once those guys was catching it, they was putting shoulder pads on Peters Township for sure. They were,
and you kind of mentioned it. You kind of mentioned it too about the Pine Richland offense, right? That they're a team that can kind of play that ball control game if they need to. That's going to be interesting because, like I said, this McDevitt defense is pretty young. They've got a couple seniors. This kid, Tyler Reinhardt, has just emerged. 4 interceptions the last 2 weeks at safety.
Wow.
I think he was hurt. I think he was hurt for the Harrisburg game. Some people around McDevitt are like, would have been nice if we had him to kind of bracket Elias Koch in that game because Elias made some big plays. But
people are saying it would have been nice if we were playing this way when we played McDevitt.
Yeah, or if they had Kevin Brown.
There's a lot of it would have been nicest going on out there.
Right.
Yeah, but it's a young defense. They've also got this defensive end named Teron Dennis, who's a freshman that does not that he looks like a senior. He's really well put together. Just a really good defensive end that's really kind of been playing well. Got a guy, their left tackle Landon Blauck has been playing defense too. He had a pick in the game as well. They're a young defense. So it's going to be interesting to see if Pine Richland can kind of play that long ball control offense. If a young defense gets kind of discouraged by it, or if they stay with their principles. Nazir Jones-Davis with Benny Brooks being out has done a really good job at linebacker for them. Has really stepped up. He's been playing linebacker all year, but his responsibilities have gone twofold with the Carnegie Mellon kid commit going out. So they're going to need everyone.
Let me ask you guys. Peters Township has a quarterback named Nolan DeLucia.
Mm-hmm.
He was athletic. He was so tough. I don't even know if he got out of bed yet today. I mean, he had to be so sore when he woke up today. They were just whacking him around, and he lasted the whole game, and he just kept making great plays. And
who was that quarterback 2 years? I forget. I'm blanking on the name of the tiny quarterback. The tiny quarterback that just basically he was like lower in shoulders on Georgia commits in the title game. Pine Richland always has kids like that. They had Ben DiNucci a while back who was like that as well. They have these tough.
You're talking about 25, the guy that they converted from running back to quarterback, right?
Yeah.
I forget his name, but he was what a football player that kid was. But my point is, or the point I was kind of trying to make or leading towards here is, I think this DeLucia is a more athletic quarterback than Saunders, and I'd be concerned if I were the calling the plays. I think Wechter calls the play. I'd be trying to devise a scheme that I can get the ball out of Saunders' hands pretty quickly.
Ryan Palmieri was his name, by the way.
That's it, Ryan Palmieri. Yeah, number 25, right, or 20, one of those two. But they get to you quickly. That Pine Richland defense. They don't give you much time to kind of think.
Right, and I think coming into the game, that is the one X factor that McDevitt has. And Saunders, if he can control this game, because they're going to need him, like Dan said, this McDevitt defense, like they're a younger defense. Pine Richland, they're going to try to control the line of scrimmage. That's how they like to play physicality. Mm-hmm. That's what they want to do. They want low-scoring game. If you look at their last 3 games, they only given up 9 points total. And Peter Township scored all 9. So that should tell you enough about how great this defense is. Another thing, Stone, like you mentioned, McDevitt should draw up plays to get the ball out of his hands quickly.
Yeah.
This pass rush it's real. It's a thing. They're looking to hit the quarterback every chance that they get.
They really are. They have fun. They're out there hooting it up, aren't they? I mean, that's the kind of defense they play. They're just
quick game. DeJounte Quick is. I imagine there's going to be a lot of that. A lot of and they did that a lot against Exeter. Obviously, a much different defense than Pine Richland, but they definitely. It felt like there was a lot of curl routes, a lot of quick 10 yards out fire, but. I don't think Pine Richland's going to be playing as far off these guys. I think they're going to trust their DBs to kind of stay with them a little more than Exeter did.
Yeah. Peters hung with them for a while. They really did. So there's
Peters
got to be something there for McDevitt to watch, to examine.
Yeah, Peters a good team.
They really are.
That film should be fantastic for McDevitt to get a hold off and watch, because I mean, like I said, like that was a very, very good team that Pine Richland just beat. Also, keep in mind that this Pine Richland team did beat Central Catholic, Pittsburgh Central Catholic as well. So this team is legit, and they're good.
They are. Yeah. Well, guys, I think that's about it, man. I think we got a lot accomplished there in not too much time. And as always, I really appreciate it. Dan, thanks for you kind of came in 11th hour there, but you had nothing better to do because you're grounded without a car, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I hope you get your car back.
I'm praying. I guess I'll give Bick's Auto Collision in Camp Hill another shout out because they've been really nice.
All right.
So, I'll tell him I gave him 2 shout outs to see if I get a discount or something. But
So Dan Sostek, Penn Live, Patriot News. Thank you. Terry Clark Jr. is back. Thanks very much. Travis Waters from our panel of experts. And we got 2 more weeks, guys. Next Monday, a week from tomorrow, will be our Week 15 recap show. And then, of course, God willing, and the river don't rise, we'll have a Week 16 the following Sunday, and we'll talk about just 6 games at that point. So let me thank the sponsors, and then we'll move on out of here. Rickaba's Electric, Payer Apparel, Ted's Bar and Grill, Hoffman Ford, Freedom Financial Wealth Management, The Tire Mart, American Legion Post 272, Modern Imprint, Team PA, AAU Basketball, Crystal Bob at Howard Hanna Real Estate, Underdog, Sports Bar and Grill, Capital Region Insurance Agency, Sam Hartley Decking, and Tonino's Pizza. Thanks again to all these great sponsors for their support. Fellas, thanks very much. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Thanks, everybody, for watching us. We appreciate it.